First off, happy Easter to everybody who celebrates it. With that out of the way, today we're going to be discussing YouTube removing the dislike counter on videos, as well as updating their monetization policy and a whole lot more, so go ahead and stick around. We'll begin with the hot button issue that has led to a lot of creators running around with their hair on fire, and that is that YouTube is discussing, as well as testing, the removal of the dislike counter on videos. They put out a tweet this last week, and I will read you the entire thing. It goes as follows. In response to creator feedback around well-being and targeted dislike campaigns, we're testing a few new designs that don't show the public dislike count. If you're part of this small experiment, you might spot one of these designs in the coming weeks, examples below. Creators, you'll still be able to see the exact number of likes and dislikes in your YouTube studio. For viewers, if you're in the experiment, you can still like or dislike a video to share feedback with creators and help tune the recommendations you see on YouTube. Needless to say, people were very angry about this, or at least very skeptical about this, and that's because between you and me, we understand. Change is bad. Change is bad. Don't you dare change anything. That's bad. Change is automatically bad. You and I understand that, so we understand the anger, the righteous indignation, the fury that we all feel. In seriousness, I don't think this matters at all. I don't think this is a big deal in the slightest. I can't tell you a single time that I was watching a video and I thought, oh, how reasonable this video is. Oh, wait a second, look at that dislike count. I was bamboozled. No. Do you know how I know a video is a scam or is complete crap full of bad information? Because I have critical thinking skills. I'm able to watch it, and I don't have a good judge of character or a good judge of personality, but I have a little bit, and I'm able to tell when somebody is being sleazy. That's how I determine. I don't rely on the thumbs down, the dislike counter, to determine that for me. With that being said, though, I don't think that YouTube is being correct. I don't think they're being honest by saying that they're doing this for creator mental health, because the creator can still see the dislike count. They still have access to that. If they're so concerned with the dislike count having a negative impact on the creator's mental well-being, they would not still present that information to the creator. I think that is dishonest of them. Because of that, I have no idea what the actual justification for this change is, but although I think it is not a big deal, I am still kind of upset about it. I'm kind of down about it. And that's because there is one constant in this world, one thing that no matter how bad my day is, I can go on YouTube, look at one statistic, and I will laugh, and my day will become better. That is going to the official White House YouTube page and seeing the dislike ratio, because one of the recent ones has 400 likes and 5,000 dislikes. And that's just funny to me. I love just thinking about it is hilarious. I'm not saying anything about the politics, no matter who the president is. That's hilarious that I have a better like to dislike ratio than the president, the most powerful man in the world. Hey, good on me, I guess. But with all of that nonsense out of the way and all of the hateful comments saying, what, you don't like Joe Biden? Shut up. It's funny. With all of that out of the way, how does this affect you as a content creator? I don't think it does. I don't think it does. I don't think it will. If you use the dislike count on your video as a measure of how well a video does, if it's a content area you should focus on more, you're still going to have that information. If you want to ensure that you still get all the likes in the world, you can still do that. That's still going to be visible, and it's still going to feed into the recommendation algorithm. Therefore, nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is that little number is no longer going to be publicly available. You still have access to all the information as a creator. And if you're a viewer, I don't want to come across as rude. Just view all of the videos that you watch through a more critical lens. You should be able to tell if somebody is full of S, if somebody is selling you snake oil, If somebody is saying, hey, you need to buy this book and then you too can own a Lamborghini, don't buy the book. That is stupid. If somebody says, you can join this company and then you have to get 2 other people to join the company and then you earn money from that, then when they get 2 more each individual to join, that's a pyramid scheme. That's stupid. Call me crazy, but I think us as viewers should focus on developing critical thinking and critical analysis skills so that we're able to determine good from bad content, good from bad people, or misleading and accurate information. We shouldn't have to rely on a like to dislike ratio to tell us if something is good or bad. Why can't we come to that determination on our own? Do we honestly need everything to be held out on a silver platter saying, this is what you should think? I'm gonna watch a video and develop my own opinion about that video. I don't care what the like and dislike ratio is because sometimes that's wrong, sometimes it's right. It tells me nothing. My opinion on it is developed through my eyes, through my experiences. I think more viewers ought to use their experiences and their intellect to determine if a video is good or bad, not rely on the stupid like and dislike ratio. It doesn't tell you anything. And if you do want to read the tweets or the replies to the tweets, I will link that in the episode notes. People were saying, what about scams? People won't be able to tell if it's a scam. Develop critical thinking. And I know that's going to be a very unpopular opinion. What about those who don't have the ability to critically learn to critically think? Learn to critically analyze. Trust no one. The truth is out there. Watch the X-Files. You'll come out a better person. We shouldn't be okay with our current standing in life. We should always be intentionally trying to learn more, improve, and become a better person. What are you? You're a terrible person, Bandrew. Tell us what's bad or good. I don't know what that was. Next piece of news, YouTube is expanding monetization. A couple of days ago, YouTube put out an update for their monetization policy, and fair warning here while reading this, I will have a few swear words. If you don't want that, feel free to skip it. They won't be terrible swear words, but they will be swear words nonetheless. Here are the 2 paragraphs that I want to share with you. First, we're expanding monetization on educational, documentary, or news content that may include violent interactions with law enforcement, recreational drugs and drug-related content, or sensitive events. We're also expanding monetization for controversial issues where non-graphic, objective discussions of controversial issues are in the video. Second, we're also expanding monetization to allow for adult themes delivered through the context of humor, e.g., romance, dating jokes, and the usage of moderate profanity, e.g., shit and bitch, in the first 30 seconds of the video. That is the entirety of that story. How does this affect you as a content creator? If you had covered any of these videos and they had been demonetized, I don't necessarily know if they are going back and rescanning every single piece of content that was demonetized and reassessing it under these new policies, but I would expect that would eventually roll out. So you may start to see some of those yellow or just gray dollar signs flip from yellow or gray to green or from gray to light yellow. That would be my expectation, and cool. That's good. You may get to see a little bit more revenue, and that is ultimately a good thing. I will link the YouTube monetization update in the episode notes, as well as their gaming monetization policy, which they updated as well with these updates. And that is actually it for the news. Now let's talk about what I've been testing. But first, I want to include a quick update to last week's episode. It was fascinating seeing the comment section replying to the Sony C100 because I don't think there was any middle-of-the-road comment saying, hey, the audio is fine. It was either, this is the best-sounding podcast or the best-sounding microphone on your voice we've ever heard, or this sounds terrible. It was physically painful to listen to. To be fair, that's probably just my voice. My voice, as someone who lives with it, it is very painful to listen to. I get it. I think this really helps illustrate 3 different things. First, how different our ears are, how we hear sounds differently. Secondly, how different all of our playback systems are. If you were listening to a really bright microphone on a set of flat studio monitors, you may like it, but if you're listening to that same really bright microphone on very bright headphones, it may become grating and actually be painful to listen to. And lastly, how different our preferences are. That's the most important aspect of microphone selection and audio in general. There are no universal constants in audio at all. It is all going to be subjective to the listener, and the recording engineer is going to have to make selections based on their preference and the artist's preference, all of it going to differ. I just thought that was really interesting and I wanted to share that. But now, what am I testing? This week, I am on another new microphone. I believe this is going to be on the stand for the next month. This is not going to be a one-off. This is the LUFS LCT840, one of their tube microphone offerings. It has multiple polar patterns. The power supply is not as feature-packed as the 940, which we will be using later in the year. This just has polar pattern selection. It has a pad and a high-pass filter option, and it does have a 40 hertz high-pass filter. Thank you, LUFS. 40 hertz high-pass, 60 hertz high-pass. I'm all for that. And this is what you are listening to. Yeah, let me know what you think of it. Pretty interesting. I did use this on a song on Bandrew Plays, the Pet Cemetery cover. And I don't think I've used this to read Grimm's fairy tales yet. I may do that in a couple of weeks. There you go. Now let's talk about what you had to say. First comment comes from Douge. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. He says, just a quick note regarding the DBX-286S, JK, also known as Julian Krause. We love Julian Krause over here. Very bright guy, makes great analytical videos. Measured his unit, the 286S, not his unit, in his review video and got negative 128.7 dBu A-weighted EIN at max gain with a 150 ohm resistor. Douge, thank you very much for that. And yeah, correction here. I was basing my analysis on the DBX-286S specs. I did not realize that their spec was listed in dBu and was not A-weighted. Of course, why would there be any kind of standardization in the reporting of specifications for preamps and microphones and everything? Why would there be any kind of standardization from spec sheet to spec sheet? Most of them are listed in dBA because it does give them a benefit. But being that it is negative 128.7 dBA, it wouldn't give you the 7 to 8 dB improvement that I thought it would last week. It will give you the 3 to 4 dB that I saw with the Focusrite because it is a similar dBA EIN around negative 128. So you will see a similar improvement there. And that comes down to whether or not you think 3 to 4 dBA improvement of your self noise, of your noise floor, is worth the additional $100 to $150 that you're paying for one of these microphone activators, inline preamp things. Thank you very much for that. And the second comment comes from Christopher, and he says, the term starting streamer implies some kind of progression to non-starting streamer or successful streamer or streamer that can recoup the investment on a $600 microphone, at least in my region. The reality of being a starting streamer, though, hell, an established one, is that your chances of breaking even on an SM7B are slim to none, i.e., what's the base rate of new streamers to successful ones? This is why the idea that the microphone might be the right choice for starting streamers that have done their research seems tautological to me, unless that research includes a fair assessment of one's ability to make it as an entertainer. Starting streamers should invest in starting microphones, in my opinion. Christopher, thank you very much for the comment, and thank you for sharing your opinion. I always find it very interesting hearing folks coming from different areas and having different points of view. I do disagree with you because I think your approach is quite narrow. I wouldn't say misguided. I wouldn't say wrong. I just think it's a narrow view of things. First, I will say I do agree. If somebody is trying to launch a stream as a business, 100%. Do that analysis. Take the time, forecast what you expect your growth to be. What kind of methods are you going to be using to convert viewers to donators? How long will it be till you reach the point where you're able to earn enough to cover the SM7B, do all the taxes, file those, do all of that stuff? Absolutely. If you're starting a stream as a business, there is a lot to consider, and you will be spending the time doing that, and you don't want to make bad business investments. And an SM7B, they may decide is a bad business investment for them. But the reason that I'm disagreeing with you is I don't think the majority of people are starting streams or making YouTube videos or making podcasts because they view it as a job. I think a lot of folks, maybe even the majority of them, view it more as a hobby. I personally don't criticize people who go down to a golf course with thousands of dollars worth of clubs, paying an annual country club fee for a hobby of playing golf that they have a ton of fun at and don't make a dime at. I don't criticize that. I don't go and criticize people who play sports for fun and spend hundreds of dollars every single year on new cleats, new shin guards, new uniforms, any of that. I don't criticize people who spend $700 on a new gaming console or multiple thousands of dollars on a gaming PC because they have fun with it and enjoy it. The point that I'm trying to make is I don't know of many hobbies that are ultimately free. Most hobbies do have investments, and a lot of those investments are recurring investments because a lot of hobbies utilize consumables, whether it be buying golf balls every single time you go golfing, whether it be buying bait so you can go fishing, whether it be buying a new lure, whatever. I don't know what goes into fishing. And in the grand scheme of hobbies, $400 on an item that you will be able to be using for 20 years maybe doesn't seem like that much to me. So in my point of view, I don't think it's crazy for somebody to spend $400 if they determine that's the microphone that they love and they want to use. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, even if they are a beginning streamer. Of course, if a beginning streamer comes to me and they have not done a single stream and they say, "Hey, Bandrew, I want to buy a microphone. Should I get a Q2U or XM8500, or should I spend $400 on an SM7B, $200 on an interface, $100 on an inline mic pre, all of this stuff totaling $1,000? My response will always be, "Hey, before spending $1,000 on that gear, perhaps you should try streaming to ensure that you are going to enjoy it and you want to continue doing it." But I am not people's dad. If somebody wants to spend $10,000 or $20,000 on an audio setup before they have recorded anything, I'm not going to stop them. It's not my job to stop them and tell them to be fiscally responsible. If they ask for my advice, I absolutely will tell them that I think they should be fiscally responsible. I think you should be smart with your purchases and ensure that what you're spending all your money on will continue to actually get use. That's my take and that's my approach, and y'all may disagree with it because I am not more active and denouncing people spending X dollars. I will always continue to advocate for fiscal responsibility. I will always continue to advocate people do not go into debt to buy stuff for this, for streaming, for making YouTube videos. I think going into debt is a terrible, terrible decision. If you have the disposable income and you think it's going to bring you joy, I'm not going to stand in your way. You do whatever the hell makes you happy. And you may disagree with that. More power to you. I would love to hear more from you if you have any thoughts on that. Now let's jump to my favorite part of the show, the Ask Bandrew segment. Welcome back to the Ask Bandrew segment. It has been a couple of weeks. If you do want to ask a question, if you have questions, go to askbandrew.com. There are instructions on how to send in audio, video, and voice submissions. I do appreciate audio, video, and text-based submissions. I do like the audio and video because then I don't have to read. I am an idiot. I am bad at reading. I'm trying to get better, but there are no adult schools for me to say. I don't need an adult school. I just need to sit down and actually practice reading and speaking what I am reading. Narrating, I believe that's called. AskBandrew.com. Send them in. First question comes from Bruce, and he says, Bandrew, enjoying your podcasts on YouTube. I notice in a lot of them you are using a Hakan P110 pop filter. That's correct. That is what I'm actually using right now. I currently use Stedman's PS101 with my TLM40 and MKH416. How would you compare the Stedman to the Hakan? Thanks, and be safe and be well. Bruce. Bruce, thank you very much for the email. That is an excellent question. First, I will start by saying the selling point of the Hakan is it is supposed to be one of the most transparent sounding pop filters out there. Most pop filters, they do color the audio a little bit, but that coloration that it's imparting on the audio is going to go unnoticed by 99% of people. The Hakan tries to avoid that completely. It is a relatively flat impact on the microphone. And at least for me, when I look at all this stuff that I've invested in trying to get the absolute best and most clear sound that I can, it seems silly to me to let a $50 difference between the P110 and the P101 be what is ultimately affecting the sound, which is why I went with the Hakan. I will go ahead and do a very quick back and forth. Currently, I am speaking using the Hakan P110, and now I have the PS101. The PS101, and now the Hakan P110. PS101, Hakan P110. There you go. It's hard to tell in my headphones while I am speaking. I do think there was a very minor difference in the sound. Like I said, I don't think 99% of people, hell, maybe even 99.99% of people will notice a difference. If there is one, it is extremely slight, and I don't think it's necessary to jump up from a $50 to $60 pop filter to a $100 or $120, whatever the hell it costs. Bruce, I hope that helped provide an answer to you, and best of luck on your voiceover, because I believe that is what you do. Thank you very much, Bruce. Next, we have a video submission. Take it away, good sir.
Hello, Bandrew. Earthling here. Thank you very much for all your great reviews of audio products. They're very consistent and very informative, and I appreciate it. In my spare time, which there is a lot of right now, I'm mixing music for streaming services like Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and your audio always sounds great. And I'm wondering if you pay attention to the LUFS, loudness units, full scale. My question for you is, what LUFS level do you recommend for music for streaming services? Thanks a lot, Bandrew, and we'll catch you on YouTube.
Well. Greetings, Earthling. That is an outstanding question. What LUFS level do I shoot for on my projects, and what should you shoot for? First, if somebody is unaware of what LUFS are, that stands for loudness units full scale. It is a standardized way, or at least I thought it was a relatively standardized way of measuring the overall loudness of a sound file. And for me, I mainly use LUFS to measure the loudness of my podcast. And because I output a stereo file, I shoot for -16 LUFS. If I was outputting a mono file, I would shoot for -19 LUFS. And every time you listen to a podcast, at least for the last 2 years, the loudness should be relatively consistent from episode to episode, because I do level them all to -16 LUFS. And I also want to note, this is not a proper standard. It is not even fully adopted. It's just a rule of thumb that I have heard put out there by some folks to try to get some consistency and level from podcast to podcast. I have heard many shows that are significantly louder than mine. Comedy Bang Bang comes to mind. I have heard others that are significantly quieter. I can't think of any right now because I have not listened to them in a while, but I just remember Comedy Bang Bang being extremely loud. -16 seems to work well for me because I'm not too loud, I'm not too quiet, and it doesn't squash my audio completely. It does affect the dynamics of my audio quite a bit, but it's not completely flatlining it. It doesn't look like I'm taking part in the loudness wars as much as some podcasts out there. Then as far as my review videos, I don't do loudness normalization to those. I earball it. That's my take on eyeballing it. I leave enough headroom while I'm recording, and then I boost it up 6-7 dB to try to get it to a more listenable level, and trying to avoid, or actually avoiding, any kind of clipping exceeding 0 dB. And then we get to what you are asking about, publishing music for streaming services, and I'm assuming that means like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, all of that. I did a tiny bit of research, and it's a lot more convoluted and confusing and difficult than I was expecting. I was expecting a single number saying, shoot for this. And because it is so confusing, I'm going to link an article in the episode notes. This is from Isotope, and they have a long article discussing the methodology and the justification for loudness standards, as well as discussing the differences in loudness standards from streaming service to streaming service. One conclusion point that I will share is the following. It says, an integrated level of roughly -12 LUFS with peaks no higher than -1 dBTP, I believe that's -1 decibel true peak, and a max short-term level of no more than -10 or -9 LUFS is likely to get turned down at least a little on all major streaming platforms, quote, or parent, at least for now. So I would say probably around -13, -12, but I think the article points out something very important, and that is you should be mastering the music to a level that fits the music. I can't imagine listening to a club banger house mix that is -12 LUFS and then going to a Mozart concerto and it being the exact same loudness as the club banger. I wouldn't want it to be. I want all of those dynamics maintained in the classical piece. I think that really is what it comes down to, trying to master to a loudness that maintains the dynamics that are essential for that piece of music. I know that's not a good answer, or it may be a great answer, but it's not the answer that most people want, because they do want a solid shoot for -14, which apparently is a standard that a lot of people have pushed out there. For YouTube, there's no standard whatsoever. Do -2 for all YouTube cares, but if you do exceed -1 dB, I think it's -1, or if you hit 0, YouTube will automatically lower the volume for your entire video. You can click on a video and look at stats for nerds, and it will tell you if it adjusted the volume of the video as a whole. Pretty interesting that they actually allow folks to see that. But I will link the Isotope article in the episode notes if you want to check it out. Thank you very much, Earthling, for the great question. Really enjoyed looking into that, and I am glad that I am not a mastering engineer because that confused me. I am a stupid person. And lastly, we have a voice submission. Take it away, good sir.
Hey there, Bandrew. I am Jarrell Powell, co-host of the Gamers for Life podcast. First, wanted to say appreciate everything that you've done. You've done some incredible work on this show, on podcastage, and your podcast education is tremendous. So again, thank you for what you do. Had a question regarding to trademarking. I was wondering if that is something that you have done with your podcasts or podcasts that have you, whether it be Podcastage or the Bandrew Says podcast. Do you think podcasters should start trademarking different phrases of their podcasts or the name of their podcast in general? If you have done so, can you talk a bit about the process, or if you have any words of wisdom? Thanks again.
All right. That is an excellent question. Trademarking. I do think there are benefits to trademarking your IP, to trademarking your brand, to trademarking catchphrases. I have had a friend who has gone through hell and back, jumping through hoops back and forth because of a trademark dispute. I have not done it. I have not gone through the trademarking rabbit hole. I have the domain for my brand. I have the YouTube channel. I own the LLC. I'm the CEO. All of that stuff. Someone may someday try to come by and steal podcastage, but I think I have sufficient evidence of functioning as podcastage, and the name has become, at least I like to think, the name has become somewhat synonymous with me. Nobody else ever publishes podcastage videos. I don't think if you search podcastage, anything else comes up. And that may not hold up in court, but if I ever get to that point, I'll burn that bridge when I come to it. As far as podcasters, should they trademark their podcast name or catchphrases? I would say that depends on your specific situation. I would absolutely say not every podcaster should be trademarking their show name or their catchphrases, but if you are developing and growing a significant income from your podcast, and a portion of that income stems from catchphrases that you have or the name of your show, I do think that's when it may become beneficial to do so. But something that I think I ought to point out, and somebody who is a lawyer or somebody who is familiar with law, please let me know. If you have an issue, if you have a trademark dispute, I think you will have to go to court to enforce your trademark, and you'd ultimately end up with lawyer bills, going to court, all of that, and that will get very expensive very quickly. So if you're running a podcast with 1,000 listeners and you're earning $50 a month, I don't think it's necessary. Sure, you could do it just for security's sake. For someone like me with the Bandrew Says podcast, I don't care. I'm not trademarking it. If somebody else wants to start the Bandrew Says podcast part 2, go for it. I don't care. If somebody wants to start a second Ask Bandrew segment, go for it. I don't care. I don't earn enough money on this thing. And more importantly, I do this because I have fun doing it. As soon as I start jumping through legal hoops and dealing with all of this nonsensical paperwork, it becomes a lot less fun. And it's why I don't accept advertisers on this show. I don't want somebody, it would be cool. Hey, I earned $100, I earned $500 on this podcast. Cool. But at the same time, that means that I essentially have a boss for that episode. Do you know why I do this show? Because it's fun. What makes things not fun? Having a boss telling you what to do. And doing all of that trademark stuff makes it a lot less fun for me, so I'm not going to do it with this show. And maybe you just develop an LLC. I don't know how any of that stuff works. Lawyers, comment down below. Tell our friend here if functioning as that entity is sufficient or if that would hold up in court at all, assuming that they are the first person to use that name. If you searched that name and realized that somebody else already had that name and now you're thinking, oh, I should go ahead and trademark it in case they tell me to stop, then I'm not touching that with a 50-foot pole. That seems like a very contentious area. I'm sticking with names that are original. Podcastage, I don't think anybody else had that name before me, and then I don't think there's another Bandrew Says podcast. That's my take on it. Hopefully that provided you some insight and some information. I do appreciate you asking, and sorry if I gave you bad information. And I think that is going to wrap up for this week. Happy Easter again. I hope you had an amazing time. Let's start with that. I hope you had an absolute informative blast while sticking out and hanging around. Sticking out. What are you sticking out? Put it away. I don't want to see it. I did not ask for that. Frankly, I think that's sexual harassment. Put it away. What am I talking about? On Easter of all days. Why am I talking about this? I do appreciate you coming by. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will talk at you. Again, askbandrew.com, bandrewsays.com. and geeksrising.com. I will talk to you later. I love you. Bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.